Hello, my astrology friends. This is Lada from AstroladaOfficial, and today we begin our 2025 astrology marathon with astrologers, amazing astrologers from around the world who explain to us the year 2025 through their eyes. And our first and honored guest is one of the most amazing teachers, astrologers that I know, Renaissance Encyclopedia astrology man, Viktor, Astro Viktor. Hello, Viktor.
Hi, Lada, and hi, everyone. It's good to be here again. And
And
today we are going to be talking about probably one of the biggest cycles of 25 and beyond is the Saturn Neptune conjunction on 0 degree of Aries, which is going to be with us for 35, 36 years altogether. So this is going to be shaking up the world big time for
whatever
sure.
is forming in the next, in 25 and 26, when the conjunction is happening, will put the seeds that will be unfolding for 30 something years after that. And
That's right.
whatever important events happen now in the world and in our personal life will define and will start growing maybe the next 15 years, and then another 15 it will be giving results. So that's quite a huge deal. I would compare this conjunction like 2020, the Saturn Pluto conjunction, don't you think so? I mean, not the same
Absolutely.
results.
Absolutely, because the Saturn Pluto conjunction happened very close by to the previous Saturn Neptune cycle anyway. So the previous one happened on 1819 degree of Capricorn in 1989. And then the Saturn Pluto conjunction happened on 2021 degree of Capricorn. So they are actually interconnected in one way or another. And then, of course, we had the Pluto Jupiter conjunction as well on 21, 22, and 24 degrees. So all these cycles are somehow connected, but we're going to talk about the history as well. So at the beginning, I want to kind of talk about what this cycle represents historically. And then we're going to make some predictions. And then at the end, we're going to try to break it down very briefly for the 12 signs as well. And then I also prepared a little bit of a lecture on Saturn and its positive meanings, because I feel like Saturn is a culprit in astrology. So I just want to talk about Saturn and its positive meanings, because there is a lot of them. And we tend to be forgetting about it. So probably I think we're going to be sitting here for 1.5, 2 hours.
All right, thank you. And before we begin, Victor's gift for you for 2025 with this video is 40% off his personal readings. I'm putting a link below if you want to have. He makes very specific predictions. I mean, like he was reading a horoscope and saying this person is in the wine industry, and I'm like, how do you know this? I absolutely love his readings. If you'd like to contact him, he also has amazing courses, hundreds of courses, and you're doing 2 new courses now. Can you just briefly walk us through them for anyone who is interested to study with you?
Well, I have been asked multiple times by my students to put together Synastry Course, because obviously this is a big interest for people. So I decided to put one together, and it's going to have 2 parts. One of them is basically your astrological relationship needs. And secret is that it's not represented by the 7th house. The 7th house is pretty much what you attract. And why you attract those type of people are not coming from the 7th house and the 7th house lord. It's more seen from the 1st house and the 4th house. The reason why, because you inherit certain type of patterns from your parents. Now, this is something I'm not going to be talking about so much in this particular course, because I did one on family constellation therapies through the lenses of astrology recently. It was highly popular. I mean, people were shocked how much details we can see from the ancestors, and mainly focusing on things that they know about their family. And understanding how much blockages you receive from your parents to be able to kind of form a better relationship is absolutely amazing. So this is the reason why I put together this Synastry course. And the second part is going to be the sexology part, which is a big part of a intimate relationship. So we're going to be looking at the sexual needs, and we're going to be looking at sex workers in that chart, bisexuality, LGBTQ related things, why someone becomes a part of a love triangle, how to kind of get out of it through astrology, and so forth. So that should be, again, another interesting course, and it might be helping a lot of people to actually form better connections in real life.
Wonderful.
So one is starting this Friday, 6th of December, and the other one is going to be starting on 6th of January. Both of them are about 10 to 12 weeks, and then they are like something $250 currently. So I think basically it's about $10 per hour on the lecture. So I think it's really worth it.
Okay. Thank you.
So Saturn and Neptune conjunction, I mean, there is a lot to talk about. So I hope you're not going to get too much bored, but I have to be talking about what this cycle is about, because if you want to have a better understanding how it will be impacting you on a personal level, you're going to have to know what this cycle is about. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that the very last conjunction was in Capricorn in 1989 in the mid-degrees. Actually, we had 3 conjunctions around that time. We had one in March, one in June, and one in November. And this cycle lasts for about 36 years. Now, I would like to give you some dates already, because somehow we already received the signs what to expect from the Saturn and Neptune conjunction, due to the fact that Saturn and Neptune are co-present in the sign of Pisces since 2023 March. Now, Saturn will be in the sign of Pisces when Neptune enters Aries, and that's going to be happening between March 25 to May 2025. And then Saturn and Neptune will be co-present in the sign of Aries between May and September 2025. And then Saturn and Neptune going to be again co-present in Pisces from October 25 to January 26. And then Neptune enters finally the sign of Aries, January 26, 2026, and then Saturn enters Aries February 13th, 2026. And then we're going to have that conjunction happening on 0 degree on the 20th of February 2026. And basically they are going to be walking hand in hand in the sign of Aries until 2028 April, when Saturn is going to be leaving the sign of Aries. So these are some of the dates that we want to kind of remember. Now, I cannot just read the Saturn and Neptune conjunction without mentioning that there are other cycles happening as well at the same time. So Pluto will be sextiling this, while Uranus will be trining this. But also, we're going to have the Chiron and Aries conjunction happening almost on the very same day when the Neptune and Saturn conjunction are happening. And that is going to be something I want to make a separate video about, because I feel like the Chiron and Aries conjunction is also extremely important. So today I'm just going to be making certain type of references about it. But let's look at what was going on in 1989. First of all, the Berlin Wall came down, which kind of makes sense. Saturn is the wall, and Neptune dissolves things. So it's kind of like the collapse of the wall. And because kind of like imagine Neptune being the ocean and then Saturn kind of like the rock. So imagine that you're trying to swim in the ocean and then you always bump into something. So it shows that we're going to have a lot of kind of like obstacles that we're going to have to try to pass by during this period. And it is all connected to the Aries part of your chart. So you might want to be looking at where Aries cusp is of your chart. And also, what is the archetype of Aries, which is, for example, about your individuality. So it could feel like that I am trying to actually express myself. I'm trying to express my talents, who I am. And then I keep running into these obstacles because someone wants to wash it away. Someone kind of doesn't allow me to be expressing myself in a non-apologetic way. Also, when we have got the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, that's going to be squared by Jupiter as well, by the way. So this could even indicate that, for example, there is legislation which is telling you that you cannot do certain type of things. Now, apart from the Berlin Wall that came down, Nelson Mandela was released from his incarceration. And also it was the collapse of the Soviet Union. Now, I would like to mention that Neptune and Saturn cycles are highly connected to Russia. So surely Russia either is collapsing here or it's going to be basically starting a war, because it's in the sign of Aries. So, and it's going to be happening on 0 degree, which is representation of the world axis. So it looks like the entire world is going to get involved in this. I don't want to talk about World War III, but I would like to mention that this is one of the indications that we might be able to see from the Saturn-Neptune. Also, I'd like to mention, though, that people tend to believe that Saturn is the planet of politics, and absolutely. But Neptune plays a very significant role, actually, when it comes to politics. Why is that? Because Neptune is the planet of vision. Now, Neptune was discovered in 1846, and yeah, that was the start of Romanticism, for example, but there were also huge political visions to merge Europe. And at first, actually, they called it as the United States of Europe. So Neptune is the planet of unity of nations. And if it happens in the sign of Aries, this would show that we are fighting to unite certain type of nations, such as I want to bring together Belarus with Russia, or, you know, whatever we want to be doing. And with Neptune, there is always an underlying motive behind it. Now, because Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, often the motive is actually something to do with money or even connected to pride. You would think that Venus has nothing to do with pride, but let's not forget, Venus has got planetary joy in the 5th house. So it is connected to pride as well to a certain extent. But also, Neptune was discovered during a Neptune and Saturn conjunction. And this could really talk to us about that there are going to be different types of discoveries. Why is that? Because Saturn is the very last visible planet and Neptune represents invisibility. Do I think that this conjunction is easy? Not at all. I don't think it's easy at all. The reasons why, because Saturn has got a full position in the sign of Aries on one hand, and Neptune doesn't feel too well in the sign of Aries. The reason why, because Aries is too hot. So the ocean is burning up and kind of evaporates. So therefore, Neptune likes this cooling type of energy. And that's the reason why it liked being in the sign of Pisces, because, you know, where the temperature is kind of good. Also, Neptune and Saturn cycles are highly connected to communism. And the communism's idea, you know, I'm not a historian and I'm not really good at all this type of stuff, but if I'm not mistaken, communism was about kind of like a classless society. So everything should be controlled by the public, such as the mines or the factories and so forth. And also, the very first communist publication happened in 1847, so just right after the conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, and after the discovery of Neptune as well.
And you know that Karl Marx, who created the Communist Manifesto, was born with a Saturn-Neptune conjunction.
That's right. I'm also going to be talking about some political figures in a short while, because whenever there is a Saturn-Neptune trigger happening in a politician's chart, those get outcasted somehow. So I've got a lot of examples of that. Awesome. So, because Neptune is the planet of faith and religion, and then Saturn, which represents somehow in a way the higher knowledge, because it's the self-mastery planet. This is about the mastery of the knowledge. So this could really talk to us about that Neptune and Saturn cycles are highly political or highly religious related as well. However, Neptune always wants to be safe. it's kind of like the Eden of Garden type of archetype, because there was something a lot better there. And you know what? I remember my grandmother was crying all the time that she wanted communism back. And she wasn't the only one who said that. Oh, because the bread was this, it cost this much and that much, and it was a lot better world, and we got so much bonuses and so forth. So with Neptune, we want to go back to something that is a lot better. It's kind of like you are born as a baby, because Aries is the newborn baby. And then it's kind of like, I don't want to give birth to this child because it's too dangerous out there. Or the child is kind of like, doesn't want to come because, wow, it's dangerous. The very first moment when the child is born, they start crying, right? And from a spiritual perspective, this could really talk to us about that. Wow, it was so much better and safer in mommy's belly. Now I have to be in this very dangerous world, and I'm getting grabbed away from my mom as well. And this nurse is taking care of me, right? So what the heck is going on? So that's the reason why Neptune is something to do with an ideological war, where I want to reunite myself with the old version because that was a lot better, returning to a divine source. And if you really think about it, what is it that Putin keeps repeating for the last 2.5, 3 years? He is, I was watching him having this interview with Matt Tucker or whatever his name is. And then he was just talking about for 1.5 hours about the history. Then in 800, this happened and that happened. And I want to go back to that state because it was a lot better for Russia. So clearly, and as I mentioned, Saturn and Neptune cycles are highly Russian motivated. Why do I say that? So when, for example, Saturn-Neptune cycle started in 1989, as I said, it was the fall of Russia, that was the breakup of the Soviet Union. 1999, when we had the square happening between them two, Putin became the prime minister. 2006 and 2007, when we had an opposition happening between those two planets, actually there was a lot of increasing kind of demonstrations, protests basically against Putin's new policies. And then 2015-16, basically Russia was in war with Ukraine. So it looks like that we are kind of coming to a closure of it, or it is going to get magnified quite significantly with the Jupiter and Jupiter square to this point as well, because what Jupiter does, it spreads things. So this is the reason why I kind of believe that we might be in danger and we are somehow on the verge of a third world war, unfortunately. And then, you know, Neptune
it's like a
the
35-year period of kind of wars that are starting because of the current situation, or
yeah,
cycle is so long.
You know, you can even think about the Saturn-Neptune cycle, that I have a vision that I need to make it happen, especially in the sign of Aries, because Aries is the initiator. So it's a Kickstarter. And often it looks like Saturn-Neptune kind of aspects tend to be popping up in the chart of dictators as well. And, you know, Neptune never wants to cause any type of, you know, it doesn't want to do anything wrong. It really believes in what they want to create.
It's ideological, yeah. Ideological driven, like an ideal.
They don't necessarily think about the outcomes. And this is why they tend to be pointing at people quite often with Neptune. Obviously, Neptune rules the drama triangle. So at first, we're acting like I'm poor me and I'm the victim, that victim mindset. And then after, we're going to start blaming others because of our own failure. And then we become the prosecutor with it. So, and then if we just go back to that idea of the Eden of Garden, you know, it was the very first home ever. They had everything they needed, beautiful garden, we had the food, we didn't need clothing, for example. So therefore it shows that we didn't need kind of protection at all. The climate was perfect, their diet was vegetarian, You know, all they had to do is just to take care of the garden pretty much. It was the place of innocence. And that's very interesting that Aries is the representation of innocence because it's a childlike type of energy. So it looks like that kind of like a decision is made kind of like out of the blue because that vision needs to become concrete with Saturn. But we all know the story, right? We had the tree of knowledge and they were not supposed to touch that. And then, of course, they couldn't resist the temptation. So they went ahead and then they touched it, right? Also, Neptune is the planet of slavery as well. Now, obviously not the slavery in a sense of like it was 200 years ago. However, when I did my little research, I was pretty shocked actually, because there is still a country which has got slavery going on in the world, even though it got kind of cancelled in 2007, but on the sides, they kind of do that. And, you know, 2007, when the very last country which kind of stopped slavery, it's crazy. I would have never imagined that. It's a country, I think, in Africa. And but anyway, what I wanted to say with this is that slavery is not necessarily the way how we used to think about it. But if we really think about it, we are all slaves still. We work for a corporate world. We've got all these politicians that are dictators and then telling us what to do, when you can breathe, how much money, you know, you cannot go, you know, the banks are stopping you. 4 accounts of mine were blocked a couple of months ago. They dissolve my PayPal account, they don't release my money, you know, because they have the right to do so. And that's exactly where Aries pops into the picture, which is the representation of your individuality. What are the barriers here? How much you can stop me from doing what I want as a human being? And in a way, what is the purpose of our existence as well if someone is keep dictating to me what I can do, what I'm allowed to do, and what not? And this could lead to people kind of coming or becoming angry, frustrated, and annoyed. All those meanings are very Saturn-like as well anyway. So what I'm trying to say with this slavery topic is that we are all enslaved to our labor, to our habits, to, you know, even sometimes money and relationship. And it looks like people might get tired in the next 4 decades about it. So hopefully this is going to be, you know, one of the manifestations is that people are going to start becoming more self-employed so that they don't have to pay, I don't know, 50% tax and so forth. And probably you're going to start seeing the rise of that even more than, because it has already started to a certain extent, by the way, but, you know, and also from a modern slavery point of view, Neptune rules human trafficking as well.
And
basically how the slavery in our current culture is determined that it's basically there is an individual who is exploited by others for personal or commercial gains. Sometimes we are tricked into it. Like if we think about that people are committing kind of like terror attacks, and usually they do that because they are offered a hell lot of money to save their own family. And then they sacrifice their own lives. So that's what the slavery is kind of about in our modern society, at least in my opinion. And unfortunately, in the sign of Aries, we might start seeing this a lot more as well. Yeah. So, according to leading psychologists, 49.6 million people live in modern slavery at the moment.
More than ever, more than ever in the world before, because we never had that many people. But
yeah, I mean, if you just think about the forced marriages, if you think about,
human trafficking,
you know, the really great friend of mine, at the age of 6, she was given away to be a wife.
Oh, wow.
At the age of 6. And the husband made her work at the age of 6.
Oh my God.
Now, that's kind of like the slavery. Okay, she is 40 X years old now. I have another friend of mine, which is a terrible story, but she was kidnapped by the mafia and she was using her as an ashtray.
Gosh.
And she managed to escape and she ran to the police. And the police took her back to the mafia.
Oh
So
my.
eventually she managed to run away, and I'm going to tell where and what, because obviously this is very sensitive. She managed to run away to another country. She got asylum, her name got changed, and all those type of things. And then they even gave her citizenship and so on. And now she lives a happy life. But the Saturn and she was born, by the way, with a Saturn Neptune square.
Wow.
Now, I'm not going to say that everyone is going to go through all these type of things, but I just wanted to show that Saturn Neptune cycle could really talk to us about human trafficking as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes what Neptune does, it wants to remove something that is an obstacle in our life. And then when we are reluctant about it, it's kind of like a huge emotional flood that is coming towards us, because Neptune dissolves things. However, Neptune also believes in this one justice system as well, though, which is not going to be fitting everyone with Saturn, because Saturn is a social planet. So the society is represented by Saturn as well as Jupiter. And then if we think about that, Libra and Pisces are in conjunction. Therefore, an in conjunction or quincunx is always coming with frustration. So Saturn being in fall clearly shows that even though we want to make this one unity, like a one world political system, for example, clearly people will not agree with that, with Saturn being in fall. And we can see that now. I've seen videos about US people or US kind of leaders raising their voices about why they needed to support Ukraine with so much money, when, yes, they are the part of NATO and Sanction 5 and all those type of things, but Europe is not putting as much money into this war as US does. And if we think about that, Aries is NATO, well, does it mean that because Saturn is the structure, Neptune dissolves? So does it mean that NATO is going to dissolve? Does it mean that US will kind of, for example, step out? I wouldn't be shocked, because US has got the IC on 1 or 2 degrees of Aries. Mm-hmm. So the conjunction is happening right on its IC, which could indicate that the country is kind of like getting divided. And on top of that, it could also indicate that from a family type of thing, I'm stepping out. So I can imagine that US will eventually decide to leave the NATO. Now, I don't want to go into speculations, because I've got my own theory how dangerous that would be for the world, because I believe Turkey would be very happy about that. Anyway, so I don't want to go into certain calculations, but it's not a secret that Turkey wants to bring back the Ottoman Empire, and Turkey is one of the biggest army in Europe. So anyway, so that's again another one, trying to remove a blockage.
Do you think it's like you mentioned, like religious wars, religious-based wars? Because Aries, Neptune, Saturn, resentments between religions and the wars that...
Absolutely, yeah. And also, let's not forget that Neptune is the planet of narcissism, especially coupled with the sun. And people often ask about what represents narcissism, and then I see a lot of different answers. For me, narcissism is represented by Sun and Neptune. So, because Neptune is kind of like a godlike mentality. So it can feel like that, you know what, I can do whatever I want. There is a self-importance around it, especially in the sign of Aries, which is about self-importance, self-entitlement. Just think about the little baby. Baby cries when mommy is not there. And maybe the baby thinks that the boobies are mine. Actually, the baby thinks that mommy is the continuation of me, not the other way around. And then they realize around age 18 months that they are actually separate identity. Until that moment, they think that they are one. They are not even aware of the fact that there is daddy in the picture. They know that there is someone there, but they don't know it's daddy. So it's really interesting from a psychological point of view. So, often what Neptune does, it kind of feels with that I have given you all that you need, and you still choose to take the apple away. If we go back to that, obviously, Bible type of things. So I will punish you. And with the sign of Aries, often we punish. And often we react with anger and frustration. So what I'm afraid of, to be frank, is especially around April. I mean, we've got the Pluto-Mars opposition, which is really a conflictual type of energy. It's going to get repeated again in April when the eclipse season starts. And of course, we've got the Saturn, Neptune, and Chiron, and Aries. Because with Aries, you kind of whisper something into someone's ear because you want to cause trouble. You want to cause chaos. So what I'm afraid of is that England will send troops to Ukraine, and that's going to be putting oil onto the fire. And the response, which is very Aries-like, we react out of anger, is going to be, for example, a war, So Saturn Neptune is about socialism, and socialism is an economic and political philosophy encompassing diverse economy and social system characterized by social ownerships of the means of production as opposed to private ownership. Now, the socialism pretty much run when Neptune was in the sign of Aquarius. So why am I talking about Neptune in Aquarius? One of the reasons why I'm talking about it is because Pluto is entering the sign of Aquarius. So it can feel like that we kind of want to bring that socialism back. And if you think about, often people also ask me, what planet rules internet? And the very first thing you hear is Uranus. I don't think actually that's true entirely. Yes, certain part of internet is Uranus, but I think Neptune is also internet. Why? Because the internet brings you together. And that's exactly what Neptune wants. It wants to bring the world together. Mm-hmm. And with that Saturn, we need to be removing something from the world so that we can unite, right? So even it could indicate blackouts with the internet, for example, because Aries is burning kind of like the cables up so that there is no kind of communications. When I'm talking about some of the histories here, you will understand because during Neptune and Saturn cycles were the first kind of like these news channels that were happening, the live news channels. But I'm going to be summarizing some of those shortly so that we can kind of understand. So I'm going to call Neptune as the political conviction planet. It's something to do with the right and wrong type of things. And then obviously in the sign of Aries, I will believe that I am right and everyone else is wrong. And with Neptune, it's kind of like, Neptune represents also people who are suffering. And of course, I want to help them. So imagine that my people are suffering and then, I want to release that suffer. And Saturn is the planet of suffer as well. Saturn is the planet of depression on one hand.
I've heard that Saturn Neptune, usually there is some collective mourning that happens, like a tragic collective mourning, or usually happens at the end of war, so during pandemics even, or some big collective tragedies. And
absolutely. What I kind of feel like, because this is something I have been predicting for a good 6 years, that we're going to have an economic crisis coming in 2026 to 2028. And this aligns on one hand with the Saturn and Neptune cycle as well, which you said is the collective mourning. I mean, not mourning, grief, collective grief. So absolutely, it looks like that there is going to be a lot of people. Somehow the middle class is kind of dissolving and disappearing. And then we have the very poor and the very rich type of thing. And to be frank, we do see that as well, right? And yes, with Neptune, often what happens is that we whine, we complain about something that is not perfect. People tend to associate Virgo with the sign of perfection, which is absolutely right. We just shouldn't be ignoring the Piscean part of perfection as well, because that's an axis. So what Neptune wants is the creation of a perfect idealistic world. And with Saturn, we have got those, something that needs to be eliminated. But also very interesting to mention, though, that Saturn has got planetary joy in the 12th house, so which is a Piscean sign. So what planetary joy indicates is very much where the planet loves being, because it can associate with that type of events. So one of the messages of Saturn, for example, in the 12th house is that I have got the strength to remove all the fears that I have. And that's the positive side of the Saturn in the sign of Aries, that you have to be tapping into your own strength. You have to grow the muscles and so forth to be able to actually end the suffering in your own life. And because this is a conjunction, on a collective level, it gives strength to every single of us to start fresh and to build something up. But I'm going to talk about Saturn in a positive way very shortly. Also, you know, if you think about that EU, I mean, EU was founded in a way to kind of, you know, connect economy. And then the migration has grown quite significantly. If we think about why the migration happened, because everyone wanted to have a better life. Neptune is the planet of the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. So, but this time around, we're going to have the Jupiter and Saturn square. So are there going to be limitations to that flow of energy, to migration, to travel? Very possible, because 2020, when we had the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction, we couldn't travel. So somehow this Saturn Neptune is also kind of telling me that the limitations could be coming from relocations, like you are not allowed to relocate to certain countries and so on. You know, like an example I would like to give here, which is a funny one, but you know, back in the days, there was someone who sued Red Bull. They took Red Bull as a company to court for false advertisement. And the person said, I drank Red Bull every single day and I cannot fly. So I want my money back. And actually, they ruled to that guy who complained about not being able to fly. But also, 2016 or 17, there was this girl who took the lottery company to court, as winning ruined her life. And guess what? She won, and she received additional money as a kind of like a penalty. She got that. So why I'm mentioning these two examples is because in the sign of Aries, though, we need to learn to be responsible for our own actions as well. And while Neptune loves blaming others, Saturn says, listen, you need to take responsibility because you did that shit. You shouldn't be blaming others, you know. You turn your own luck into your own favor, basically. And what's difficult with Neptune is that it's very difficult to admit that I did something wrong, because I believe that I did it for the greater good. I'm going to give you another example here. Kind of like you will see often that with Saturn Neptune, people are quite scientific. They do discoveries, but and they don't, let's say I discover, I don't know, a new missile, okay? Just just to give an Aries-like example. And they don't discover that to cause any type of harm, but actually we people are greedy and then we misuse it, right? And then after, the shame is on the person who discovered it. So often there is a redemption part to Neptune as well. So I come up and then I have to create something which is going to be able to shoot that missile down from the sky. So the very same person, instead of celebrating its success or her success, you know, discovering something fantastic, maybe Red Bull, no, I have to be ashamed of it. So I have to discover kind of like the polarity of that as well. So we might see that as well with this Neptune and Saturn cycle, that a lot of discoveries are made, especially because Uranus will be in the picture. Obviously, we've got the Jupiter and Uranus cycle going on, the Jupiter, Pluto, Uranus cycle, basically with a connected to Saturn and Neptune. So we might be seeing a lot of discoveries, but it might be coming with certain type of regrets as well. Also, Neptune represents losses. So the loss of identity could be a big topic here. And of course, when we are looking at some examples of losses, I mean, loss of a job, loss of a status, loss of a significant person, loss of housing. So in the sign of Aries, actually, it could talk to us about, to a certain extent, loss of leadership abilities, loss of status, and something to do with sexual orientation as well, for example. And Aries represents your vitality, so it could feel like that I'm tired to get out of bed. I am not motivated enough to get to work and to put my, you know, to pull my shit together and all those type of things. Saturn and then where does the loss lead? It leads to grief. And there is 5 stages of grief, but let me not talk about it. Very briefly, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. So it looks like with the Saturn Neptune, which is highly about, yes, as you said, it's a global grief. At first, we are at the denial part of it. So if I want to kind of break down, you know, that 40-year cycle, 36-year cycle of Saturn and Neptune, then, you know, 7 years of each stage, let's suppose. In the first 7 years, we are in a denial. So that's about avoidance and confusion and, in a way, shock and fear. And then after we go into the anger, which is the frustration, irritation, anxiety, and then we start bargaining with that. So we are kind of struggling to find meaning, reaching out to others, telling our stories to others, and then it might lead to depression. We are overwhelmed, we are helpless, and then eventually we accept it, and then we start exploring options, new plans in place, and then we move on, and then we create something better. So the faster you get to that acceptance stage, in a way, most likely the better this Saturn and Neptune cycle is going to be for you. So Neptune also represents medicine, hospitality, charities, fraud, illicit activities. So we might see that unfortunately the side effects of COVID and, you know, the integrity Saturn of pharmaceutical companies might be coming up as a major topic. And because Uranus is in the picture as well, Uranus and Neptune are very much about trends and influencers. Now, Aries is the pioneers. It looks like new spiritual warriors are born. Neptune, which represents your collective needs, the servant of the collective needs. And if you think about it, that the head of country is meant to be doing that, you know, they are meant to be protecting your welfare, protecting the welfare of people. They need to be in devotion to people in need and so forth. So therefore, Neptune represents these icons, someone everyone knows, someone very strong, kind of personality who is impacting other people's life. So we could see the birth of these type of people, but unfortunately, we could also see that they are going to get killed. They are going to be somehow moved off of the stage. And let me mention a few examples here, because anytime when we had like a politician who has got these Saturn and Neptune aspects going on. So, for example, imagine that we have got a politician and then Saturn is transiting, Neptune is opposing their Saturn. So, I mean, just a few examples. Kennedy was born with Saturn Neptune conjunction in the 10th house. Then we had Putin, who has got Saturn Neptune conjunction in Libra. Even the sun is there too. Lincoln was born with a Saturn Neptune conjunction. Angela Merkel, who was born with a Saturn Neptune conjunction in the 10th house. Obama was only Saturn in the 12th house, but often the last, 7 US president had either Saturn or Neptune in the 12th house as well. So it's also interesting to see. And of course, the 12th house is quite Neptunian. Bush, who had Saturn in the 12th house. Margaret Thatcher, who had Saturn in the 12th house. So we see that the Saturn Neptune is really about politics. Now, I wanted to give an example here. What was that example I wanted to see? I wanted to mention a couple of examples whenever we have got the conjunction. You know what's very interesting? That we've got the 2026 conjunction, and then it comes together on US 1 degree Aries IC, and that is happening pretty much around the Independence Day on 2025. So it kind of will be interesting to see. And then also US has got Chiron return as well. Well, interesting. Okay, so what else? Oh, I mentioned that I wanted to talk a little bit about the positive meanings of Saturn as well, because I feel like poor Saturn is often a culprit in astrology. And I do believe that Saturn is actually the planet of growth, and it's not Jupiter. And you might be wondering, what is wrong with you, Viktor? Because Saturn being the planet of growth is just crazy. And it's not crazy at all. If we think about the growth journey from a psychological perspective, and Saturn is highly psychological because it has got planetary joy in the 12th house. First of all, we've got a little circle here, which is our comfort zone. And we are there because it's safe. And the safety is represented by Neptune here, right? So if we get stuck in our comfort zone and then we don't get out of it, then of course, where is that going to lead? We are afraid, we make excuses, we are afraid of other people's opinions. We're gonna be at relaxation, at ease, and we accept all the craps what is happening around us. The next zone of the growth journey is the fear zone. So we are afraid that I'm going to get judged. This is the reason why I'm not moving on. Low self-confidence. We make up excuses. We are afraid. We are kind of like frozen. All these words are very Saturnian. Fear, excuse, being afraid, low self-confidence, right? These are Saturnian keywords. Then the next part of the growth journey is the learning zone, where we acquire new skills, where we expanding comfort boundaries, where the fear gradually disappears, where we deal with challenges and problems. Saturn is the planet of facing problems. That is about gradually something moving out of our life. That is about boundaries. And then we start expanding that comfort boundaries, right? Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius as well. And Aquarius is very much about, okay, we've got a small circle of people. That's what Capricorn is looking after. I want to be expanding that. Let me welcome new members into the community so that circle gets bigger and bigger. And that's why Aquarius on one hand is a representation of equality and so forth. So these are Saturnian keywords as well. And then finally, the fourth stage of the growth zone or the growth journey is the growth zone, where we discover our purpose, where we're setting ambitious goals, where we are facing challenges head on. Aries is the head. So the Saturn Neptune is about facing challenges head on. And then we achieve objectives, and then we pursue our dreams, which is Neptune, right? We have to be pursuing our dreams. So Saturn is the planet of growth, in my opinion, and not Jupiter. Not Jupiter. Saturn is what we reap is what we sow. And Saturn wants legacy that we can leave behind. It's about lifetime achievements. It's a struggle, yes, but it's a worthy struggle. It's the planet of expertise, the planet of determination. Yes, it does represent your inner saboteur as well, that you talk down on yourself. And that could be the danger of Saturn being in the sign of Aries, where unfortunately the self-talk you do or the talk that you hear from others are unfortunately crap. So the inner critic, that's Saturn, like when the society is telling you, you are a big fat loser and you will never achieve anything in your life, or no one likes me, Neptune, the poor me, right? I don't have any friends. I'm alone in this, Aries, aloneness. I'm alone in this, no one supports me. And that's what you can do with this conjunction is just forget about you lacking confidence and strength. Build those muscles up and then go for it. You know what I'm going to do, Lada, with this Saturn Neptune? I decided yesterday. I'm going to be preparing for a bodybuilding competition. That's what I'm going to use Saturn and Neptune in Aries for. So I want to do that sometimes in 2026. It's going to be happening in my second house. And second house is the physical strength. So I'm going to bulk up. I'm going to go for a not to win, which is an Aries mindset. It's just kind of like proving the point to myself that I can do it.
Beautiful. Well, I've seen people with Saturn in Aries who are born like that usually have pretty good muscle system as well. For some reason, very good. They love to work out. A lot of them that I've seen, they can take on very like Ironman challenges even because it's a Saturn Neptune Aries. I feel it a bit like a Shaolin monk because there's a spiritual aspect of Neptune. There is the denying and discipline side of Saturn, and there is the Aries, strength of the body. Sorry, I'm out of breath because I'm doing Pilates and listening to you speak about Saturn in Aries.
Oh, I see. I mean, the other dream I always had, you mentioning this Shaolin type of stuff. I have always wanted to learn Kung Fu or this Shaolin type of stuff. So you mentioning that, I did look into that a good 6-7 months ago because I found some in China. But once I figured out there is no internet, Facebook, and so forth, Zoom and stuff like that, I was like, no, we're not coming. I cannot work, but I would love to do something like that. Anyway. So just a tip how you can work with this Saturn and Neptune. What else can it represent? It could represent that the governments are going to be dissolved. The governments collapse. The governments are somehow disappearing. Or Saturn, which is the planet of practicality is not going to be practical anymore. So Saturn, which represents traditions, the traditions are changing. Or who we looked up as a mentor or an expert will change also. It could really talk to us about the erosions of systems in the world, or a major political figure will fall from their own empire, or we have got that ideal political situation or this ideal political system that we want to create. Obviously, it's a 0 degree, which is about giving birth to something, is going to get started with that. Obviously, Saturn is the planet of reality, while Neptune is the illusions. So how are we going to balance this out? These two planets are really about polarities. I mean, Saturn boundaries, Neptune no boundaries. Saturn tries to give form and shape to Neptune, which is also the planet of spirituality. So is there going to be certain type of limitations around spirituality?
Think about it. 1917, communism came to power, the October revolution in Russia, and they started destroying churches. So they banned religion. So it's happened once before on a Saturn Neptune conjunction. And then China was formed on a Saturn Neptune conjunction. They also banned religion and the old Chinese traditions as well. They started pursuing Tibet. So we can see a big kind of for religions or regulations or rules or something that is less extreme, hopefully. But with Aries energy, I think there might be quite either religious wars or going after religions in more forceful way. So that's very correct what you're thinking. That's what I'm feeling as well.
It's the Saturn Neptune is, I have a dream, and it can feel like that my dream is, restricted, or I have now the courage to go after my dream to make it happen in a way. Somehow the reality and the dreams are brought closer, bringing together science and spirituality. I would love to see that. And that's a possibility in the next 4 decades as well. It is, of course, because we have got idealism involved, therefore people will be divided about it. So this is kind of like a video, it's a love or hate. And I'm expecting, love and hate as well from people that, Viktor, you are stupid and so forth. That's great. This is how I see it, and it's a conjunction, which is always about the merge of two planetary energies. So it looks like it is the birth of the initiation of the ideal political system, which might end up being kind of like a bloodbath, really. As I mentioned, Saturn Neptune represents Russia, so communism, so one world power I can imagine here. Then also it could even indicate that I'm afraid of spirituality, because I want to see something that is real, truth behind the scene. Or we can see that the image of the real world powers, it's the realization that we thought that Trump is leading the world. And then it turns out it's not Trump, it's XY down there in the corner, It could talk to us about the death of the idealistic world. Saturn rules death. Or it could unfortunately talk to us about that loads of people are going to be losing their life, for example. That's a really bad one, but there is that too. Also, it's just a good example here, like Princess Diana. She is a great example of this Saturn Neptune, where she was a highly influential people. She was highly loved, obviously by the society. Maybe she wasn't as loved within the family, but she was, by the way, born, I think, with the square. And of course, she had a tragedy happening at the end of her life. So often with Saturn Neptune, something starts, but it ends up as a tragedy. Or the impeachment of Bill Clinton, which is not necessarily literal death, but it's a kind of death, happened during Saturn and Neptune cycle as well. Or what also makes this conjunction very interesting, that we have got the two outer planets in the picture. So the Pluto sextiles and the Uranus sextile as well. So what I kind of feel like about it is that how far we can take the internet, the discoveries, or we can put a boundary, how much internet and phones, etc., actually can take our own life over. I just heard recently that, is it New Zealand or Australia, but they banned social media for underage 16.
Australia. Australia. Yeah.
Australia, right. So I can imagine that this might be happening coming up even more, or it could really talk to us about major technological improvements, of course, kind of like this is the ultimate army, you know, the super good guns. And as you said, it's the Iron Man type of energy. So we might be seeing more shows of those. By the way, the last couple of years since Saturn is there, we had 2 Iron Man shows on Netflix. So this is not impossible at all, actually. It's very, very possible that that's going to be something very prominent. Also, other stuff that came to my mind. So it's Saturn, which is the order. So orders are dissolved. So that could talk to us about legislations around sexuality, for example, or who can have a gun and so forth might be changing. A conjunction is always something new, so a new world order that comes with it. On a personal level, this could indicate that we need to be working extremely hard to let go of something, working hard to forgive someone or something. And definitely there is this wake-up call to the reality as well. Now, it feels like, because Neptune is also something to do with pharmaceutical companies and pandemics and so forth. So I'm just wondering if there is a possibility for new pandemics that might be blood related. Or just the aftermath of the COVID, and then that's going to somehow stir, you know, some things up, the side effects that might be coming out of it.
Connected to the blood? Is it because it's in Aries? Because Aries is
because of Aries, and on top of that, just because of this is kind of like the Saturn Pluto conjunction and its continuation. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, the Saturn Pluto conjunction happened very close by on the degrees of the Saturn Neptune previous cycle.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, it could be even indicating that the crime is going to be increasing quite significantly. Just because, of course, Aries is about entitlement and I need something. It's the survival instincts. You know, it's like 2 doggies. My doggies are always fighting over food. So that we might be able to see as well. But with Saturn, which is trying to sober up Neptune. So somehow, often the Saturn-Neptune cycles are also bringing us climate changes as well, by the way. And I don't want to back it up now with historical data, but climate change, just go with it. And then it kind of indicates that we have to sober up and we have to kind of collectively get together to somehow try to save the world. Whether it's because, you know, the waste, for example, in the ocean, Jupiter and Neptune are the planet of wastes, really, and then Saturn is kind of trying to regulate that there. But even imagine that Neptune, which is the ocean and the water, that is getting heated up, and then Saturn is trying to kind of cool that down. So we can see water issues or waste in the ocean. Or even I looked at the actual conjunction chart, and the dispositor is Mars, of course, which is in the sign of Aquarius. And Mars is fighting for freedom. And Mars is going to be squaring Uranus at that point as well. So it is all about freedom. It is all about, kind of like my blood is boiling within me. And it is happening because of resources. It is happening because, I don't know, food or gas or oil. Obviously, Uranus is still in the sign of Taurus, which is the representation of natural resources that the Earth can provide to you. And when we have got the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, we've got an asteroid there as well, Urania. And its astrological number is 30 if you want to be looking at. So I was wondering, Urania is the representation of divination as well as astrology and astronomy. So surely we're going to have some astronomical discoveries. But can astrology become real, or can astrology become regulated? Lilith is also part of the conjunction as well. That's going to be on 4 degrees of Aries. And Lilith is highly rebellious type of energy. I also saw that Mars was focusing, Mars was in conjunction with Vesta in that chart. Maybe it would have been easier if I showed the chart anyway. Maybe I can send the chart and then we can put it on the screen if you have time. And Vesta is about focus and a mission statement. So the mission is around freedom. So it really looks like that we are fighting for our own freedom. I was wondering also, smoking become maybe illegal, you know? I mean, 2006 and 7, actually smoking got banned in most of European countries. So does this bring the smoking topic into the picture, potentially? Or this could talk to us about the death of social media, because Saturn death and Neptune, as we agreed, it's social media connected, internet connected. Especially, I would say that Neptune is the ruler of YouTube. So is YouTube going to be going through a major transitioning, or there's going to be a new YouTube channel? Also interesting that CNN was born during Saturn and Neptune square. So it's something to do with the news channels that might be going through a reform. And when it comes to, Saturn, which is reality, and Neptune is unreal and fraud, so maybe I'm wondering, hopefully somehow we are not going to be fed anymore with all the lies and BS. And then we can get a clearer picture about what is actually happening. I mean, there are so many fake news going on nowadays. I've got a friend of mine who lives in Ukraine, and then I sometimes, is it true that now you guys don't have heating and so forth? Because I read it that somehow, no, we still have got heating. Don't believe that. We still have got heating. I was like, okay, I saw that in the news. So we don't know what to believe anymore. And that's Neptune, the planet of deception. And with Saturn, we need to see things clearly. And that's what we are kind of fighting for. But it could also indicate kind of like Aries is the soldier. So I am a tired soldier. I'm a tired police. So we might even see that they want pay rise and all those type of things. Or we realize that, the entrepreneurs are tired. Or Saturn, the elderly people. So the elderly people are suffering, and what do we do about it? Maybe, Aries survival instinct. So do we give jobs to elderly people? Do we have pension at all? Neptune represents pension, and Saturn is the government. So is that going to be kind of canceled out? Or these type of questions also could be popping up with this. So just some of these. Now, historically, 703, that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, that's when St. Petersburg or Leningrad was founded by the Russians. We had also the Great Storm of 1703, which was so destructive. Then we had 2016, Saturn-Neptune square, Brexit initiated. So does it mean that we're going to have kind of like a new, Brexit, or does it mean that England is going to fall apart, or even not England actually, but the United Kingdom is kind of falling apart, and then there's not going to be Scotland and Wales and all these type of things? I mean, this has been a topic for a while anyway. It's a known fact that they wanted borders and they didn't want to be the part of it anymore. So this might be happening coming up. So I want to summarize, because Saturn is very material. So it could really talk to us about having to let go of our material world, having to let go of illusions. It could talk to us about having to build new structures. finding your own spiritual path, actually. And maybe it's also telling us to reconnect somehow with your innocence, reconnect with nature. And these are somehow some of the best ways, actually, in my opinion, how you can kind of use this Saturn and Neptune conjunction. And also, the other thing that actually came to my mind is that because Saturn is Aries is the promoter, and it's not just about fighting, but it's kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Promoting, the pioneer. Yeah, that's the one I'm looking for. So what we can do with this is that we can somehow promote something that we have given birth to. Remember that Saturn Neptune wants you to give shape and form to your ideas, to your big ideas, which might be able to bring you money. So this is how I kind of see how the Saturn and Neptune could be playing out for many of us.
Wow, lots of predictions, lots of forecasts. There's so many things. I wish I could stamp every prediction, timestamp it, but that would be impossible. So
but also, the other thing that actually just popped into my head, because Saturn is a family legacy planet. So just a few things about it. Saturn is often looked at as a father archetype, but I think Sun and Neptune are our parent in our chart on one hand, and Saturn represents our family legacy, which we inherited. Obviously, maybe a grandparent, a great-grandparent, and so forth. And Aries is the birthright. So even we can see here, unfortunately, the restrictions of who can have a child, how many child, and all these type of things. Because of course, Jupiter being in the picture, the overpopulation. So I wouldn't necessarily be shocked about those type of initiations as well. Obviously, Saturn and Neptune is about the system breakdown, because there is some type of dysfunctioning element going on. Or often with the Neptune, we neglect something. So we neglected a system, and then kind of we need to reintroduce that. Saturn is a leader to a certain extent. It's the natural 10th house ruler. So it's kind of like when the people are asking for a leader to step up, like a political leader. And I want to be able to put my faith into you. And that's where Neptune comes into the picture. I need someone who takes the reign and step up the game and step into position of authority. And that's a message to you as well on a personal level. That you need to be accountable. You need to ethically realign with your goals. And any type of unethical behavior will somehow pop out. And you're going to be questioned. You're going to be asked to take responsibility for any of those, in a way, things that you have done. And, also this could talk to us about the loss of the meaning as well. So did you kind of lose, meaning to life? Have you given up? Ask yourself that type of question as well. How are you going to be courageous and bold again? What do you need to do to get there? And maybe you're going to have to be looking at, like, you're going to have that spiritual awakening somehow. And yes, this could even talk to us about, as I mentioned, health-wise, certain type of vulnerabilities. And then Aries is the representation of head and blood, but also the adrenal function of the body as well. I mean, Neptune is autoimmune reactions. Aries could represent inflammation-related stuff as well. So there is definitely the increasing need here for like self-care. maybe you want to also ask yourself the question about how to bring the material and the spiritual realm together. Or ask yourself the question that why do we live if we don't have any type of purpose? So this is a period when you can give yourself purpose. Maybe also what you think, you need to remember that that's not the truth, or the truth has got kind of like different dimensions to it. So don't be delirious with this conjunction. There is also that message behind it as well. Break down the barriers around you. But also, somehow it is telling you to lead by example as well, because Aries is a leader archetype. So you want the family legacy to be changed, lead by example. You know, often like Neptune is kind of like a tsunami type of thing. So you can put down those sandbags and you can make this big wall. No way it's going to stay there without any type of injuries. And Aries is the sign of injuries. So we do need to understand that there is going to be a collateral damage in your life when you're trying to introduce something new. But you should not stop. Stand up, get going. You got knocked over. Stand up, try something else. Don't give up, because there is no life without any type of meaning. So this is how I kind of feel like about this conjunction. Something needs to collapse, maybe something that you have, the way you have been oppressed, and it might be a person, it might be a, you know, society, it might be, I don't know, a country or your grandma or whatever it is. Remove that from your life. And probably, you know, I kind of feel like, you know, either we agree or not, but in the last 1 year, I've seen so many controversial topics about pharmaceutical companies and then how the big pharma wants to kill us, and this is not healthy, that is not healthy. And I think the more we focus on these conspiracy theories, the more we kind of get sucked into it, and Aries gets angry. So try to kind of withdraw yourself, Neptune and Saturn, from all these kind of stressful matters. Sometimes it's about switching off that bloody TV, you know, and not listening to news and stuff like that. And it's not necessarily about putting your head in the sand, because that's not clever either, but just find balance of how you allow your life to be taken over by all that crap that is going on in the world.
Because when you hear all those things all the time, you start feeling like a victim. That's very Neptunian Saturn energy. Like
yeah.
I've done this.
I mean, if you want to build a life,
like, what's
we
the point
shouldn't be running away from something. We need to actually face it. And the problem with Saturn and Neptune is that we want to build a life, Saturn, but with Neptune, we might be running away from it as well. So we should be facing those type of issues. And that's where the dispositor and Uranus and Mars square in that particular chart is coming into the picture, where we have to be brave enough, where Uranus wants to get us out of our comfort zone. Uranus is saying, don't sit on your laurels anymore. Lift your bum up, get going, and fight for your own freedom. And if you are able to do that, Saturn and Neptune will be just brilliant. Oh, one more historical things I want to mention. We had Saturn-Neptune conjunction, almost forgotten, that's actually really important. We've got, we had Saturn-Neptune conjunction in 1534, and Saturn-Neptune were in Aries. Guess what? Pluto was in the sign of Aquarius, and Uranus was in the sign of Gemini. So basically, we had exactly the same stuff going on. Now, what happened around that time? Henry VIII ditched Rome and the Catholic Church to install the Protestant Church of England. And basically, he just wanted a male heir. And then he reformed the entire religion, one that allowed annulment and the whole slew of other freedoms. So, oh, and then there were all like, it basically led to the dissolution of monasteries and the destruction of relics and churches and all those type of stuff. So it looks like that's exactly what's going to be happening, most likely not with religion, though. US, 1861, 1875, Neptune was in Aries. That was the period of time when we had the American Civil War. And it happened just a day after Neptune entered, actually, Aries. Historically speaking, I don't want to scare anyone, but whenever Uranus is in the sign of Gemini, US was in wars. The last 5 times. So does that mean that there is going to be a war in US? You know, let's see what is going on. I'm just laying out the historics here. You know, I'm not necessarily saying that we should be expecting a war, but it looks like we are on the, you know, we are on the, yeah. Anyway, so that's the general one. I don't know if, Lada, you have got anything else to add.
No, that was very full picture. Incredible.
So shall we break it down for the 12 signs briefly?
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, so what happens for Aries? Well, it looks like that Aries, you have to make your dreams meet reality. This is really about, we've got a bit of a tension going on between what you need and what you want. It's a little bit of an idealism that meets reality. So you're going to have to be sobering up and then seeing that your goals are achievable or not. Or you have to be able to push yourself to bring that vision of yours come to life. I mean, Aries is a fire sign, right? And if you've got an Aries rising sign, that's a card in like an angular house as well. So we've got all the strength that we need to fire your belly up, to fire your bum up. It just, Saturn wants you to be disciplined about it. It wants you to make the steps slowly but surely so that we can make it happen. Yes, in the first house, this could talk to us about depressions and you question your beliefs and your philosophies. What the heck am I doing in this world? It can feel like I'm gonna give up. I lost purpose in life. So instead of that, this is actually calling you to filter your vision and illusions, kind of make a plan, and then make it happen. And maybe there is a healing to be done about who you are, that you can be the non-apologetic version of yourself. Maybe there is a need here to be a little bit more on the creative side. Maybe you need to be doing some spiritual practices so that, you know, it can happen for you. What happens for Taurus? Well, very spiritual period that is coming up. Maybe we're going to have to do a bit of an introspection here. Maybe we're going to have to spiritually try to ground ourselves. Maybe we need to be removing ancestral pain from our life, ancestral blockages. So the 12th house is often the representation. This is something I have spoken about in the family constellation course through the lenses of astrology, that the 12th house is kind of like information that you never experienced in your life, but you know them because on one hand, it's in your DNA. Secondly, maybe your parents kind of told you stories about it. And then it got kind of filtered down to you through mommy and daddy and so forth, even though you did not experience them. So it looks like you're going to have to remove some of those as well from your life. And maybe what you are struggling with is that you cannot decide whether there is this something that is happening. Is it an illusion or is it actually real? This could talk to you about having to look at your dreams a little bit, or what inspires you, and kind of like making your prophecy happen, or digging something up from your subconscious, making it conscious so that you are aware of your own inner demons, inner saboteurs. Because something is holding you back from, let's say, creating that financial success that is Taurus was born actually to do, to kind of create. And maybe, you know, a conjunction is about planting the seeds. And for you, Taurus, that's all about fertility. So plant the seeds, water it, take after it, be very careful about it, give attention to that something, be mindful about what you want to grow. And then this should be a great one, great period for you. And maybe you can do something through creativity, or you can manifest spiritually something, like you want to become a great guru, a spiritual guru, you want to become a healer. Just don't have too much self-doubt there. Don't put everything under scrutiny or a magnifying glass. And have certain type of boundaries to your dreams as well. And that would be extremely important. Gemini rising sign. So it looks like that, because this is going to be taking place in your 11th house. So maybe with Saturn, which is the boundaries, Neptune, no boundaries at all. And then 11th house is about bringing people together. So it looks like that you can become a bridge builder with this. You have got all these ideas, and some of them are going to be probably silly. Some of them are going to be great. Kind of sort them out, because this could bring you success. It could bring you fame. But on the other side of the coin is that, do you have a stage fright? Do you have the ability to communicate to these people the way, you know, you would like to? It really looks like that you have to put something on the world stage. You're going to have to articulate that vision that you have given birth to, potentially from 2023 onwards. Or you know what? You need to be exploring new visions. But with Saturn, it's all about practicality. So enough of dreaming, enough of talking about it, what you're going to be doing, because it's Aries. It's about the start of it. Otherwise, it's never going to be happening. 11th house is success made from your work. So this could even, yes, maybe you have to be removing certain type of illusions that I'm going to be, I don't know, I'm 75 years old and I'm going to be the best ballerina. It might not be happening for you anymore, but don't bury yourself. This is telling you that you still have got certain type of abilities there that you can use for personal gain. 11th house is a money house. We just, again, need to be very disciplined with that Saturn. We need to find boundaries. We need to be creatively inspired. And there needs to be an element of fluidity as well with Neptune, though, going with the flow. So Neptune is kind of like the demographic research planet, especially along with the moon. So maybe you want to be opening a YouTube channel. Yes, I don't want to mention, you know, stuff like, oh yeah, it's the loss of friendship and then you are alone. I'm trying to focus for everyone on the positives now with this constellation. What if you have got a Cancer rising sign? Well, maybe it's all about, on one hand, you have to be realizing how emotional you are, how attached you are to something, and maybe you are too attached to your parents, because this conjunction is going to be taking place in your 10th house. But definitely, it is also telling you that maybe you can start actually a completely different field. Maybe you can tell that, you know, I don't have to be looking after my kids anymore. I don't have to be looking after my parents anymore. You know what? My dream was always to become a fighter. And then now you can become a fighter. So it is giving you an opportunity, on one hand, of letting go of certain type of blockages that are originated from your family. There is a dream there which is wants to come out. It kind of wants to be visible, but maybe you buried it so much that you're going to have to do a lot of research around it, what that could be. Maybe you have been self-deceiving yourself. Maybe you have been lying to yourself about something, and that needs to be kind of gone. It needs to be, you know, Cancer, you are really good at nurturing others, and Saturn is not necessarily a nurturer. It's a kind of like the nurse type of energy. On one hand, with Saturn, it's kind of like has got planetary joy in the sign of, in the 12th house, as I said. So Saturn doesn't necessarily like taking care of others, but it doesn't mind it either. Okay. So maybe you need to be realizing that there are certain type of family ties there, and the cord needs to be cut. And making a decision about your own future with a clear hands, and not putting other people's needs forward, probably. Leo rising sign. So it's going to be taking place in your 9th house, which is the house of opportunities. So it looks like you have got the opportunity to start fresh. You have got the but there is a need here to, because this is the house of opportunities, and Neptune is the planet of dreams, and then we've got Saturn, which is the planet of reality. So is that opportunity a good one for you? Is that going to kind of move you forward? Maybe this is actually giving you the opportunity to be in the spotlight somehow. Are you okay with that? Maybe you have had a lot of struggles actually previously. Maybe it's giving you the opportunity to move away from certain type of relationships, people who have overshadowed you, people who have been kind of sucking the life out of you, and it's giving you the opportunity to let them go. This really looks like, as I mentioned in the video, that Saturn for me is the planet of growth. So this is giving you an opportunity to go through a personal growth, that you can become a celebrity if that's your dream, and so forth. This is encouraging you to spread a message, to express yourself creatively, or to express your opinions. But it's also very important that you listen to others as well at the same time, though. So it really feels to me that sky is the limit for you now if you put effort into something. Virgo rising sign. So this is going to be happening in your 8th house. Now, not necessarily the easiest position ever, because it looks like there needs to be a lot of introspection about your mood, about your feelings, about your past as well. It is telling you to somehow put your fears, your psychological complexes under scrutiny, especially when it comes to some of your dreams that you have been nurturing for a very long time. And maybe this is asking you to let go of those. Or maybe this is telling you to now it's time to give birth to something that you have been dreaming about for a very long time, but there are psychological complexes that are holding you back. Oh, I have to be feeding the kids. I have got obligations. I'm a workaholic, and so forth. This is also inviting you to be a little bit more, what's the word I'm also looking for? Intimate with yourself and potentially with a partner as well. It's about relying on your own talents rather than relying on others. I also feel like that you need to do the research to be able to figure out, to gain clarity about your own life purpose. So there is a need here to reassess your goals. There is a need here to kind of figure out what gives you the strength and the aspiration. And Virgo, you are really great at analyzing it. So use that analytical skills of yours to look at whether your dreams are real or not, look at your own fears, and then how kind of we can eliminate them, because the 8th house is the house of toilet. We just need to flush that down there. Libra rising sign. So, well, it really feels like having this in your 7th house, that maybe you have got this dream, you are giving shape and form to it, and then maybe it's time to sell that product to a client of yours. This is also could be a result of you waking up and realizing that the relationship I am in is not necessarily the greatest anymore. It's not necessarily serving my dreams. Or if you have been single, this could actually maybe, so you might be looking at your relationship a little bit more from a practical point of view, and you shouldn't be kind of over idealizing something. So be very crystal clear about whether the relationship you are in, kind of like, I feel like I'm a slave in it, or I feel like that, my needs are met somehow. Because it's an opposition towards your rising sign, often it can feel like that something is getting forced onto me. It really looks like that this transit is encouraging you to either emotionally walk into a relationship or emotionally walk away from that. Saturn is the planet of foundations. So maybe you have been trying to people please your partner, and this is going to be awakening you that enough is enough. I'm not that diplomatic anymore because I want my own needs to be met as well. And therefore, you might want to kind of draw barriers to the partner that, I don't know, once a week we're going to go out and so on. And dissolving the illusions around the partnership that you might be in, or you're going to allow yourself to be a little bit more vulnerable. This might be inviting you to be daring to talk honestly, openly about your needs as well, rather than just allowing others to kind of dictate to you. Scorpio rising sign. So this could, this is, on one hand, it could feel like that this is kind of like a spiritual crisis situations in your life. It could really feel like that there is this itchy bum syndrome here. I know I need a change in my life. I know that I want to start fresh, but there is a lot of question marks around your head. So it really looks like, because it is happening actually in your sixth house. And the sixth house is, yes, it's health and all those type of things, great, but it also represents the crisis situation in our ego. So because it's a cadence house, the cadency of the houses represents something to do with the mind as well. So there is definitely the need here as well to somehow explore that subconscious mind, explore your own habits, your self-defeating behaviors, to work through the fears, and to have a crystal clear understanding over where those doubts are coming from. So it really looks like that you're going to have to be a little bit more kind of like responsible every single day. You're going to have to kind of create that structure in your life, but merge that with certain type of imagination and intuition as well. Know that this is good for me intuitively or not good for me, and so forth. And surely, yes, the example I gave you that I was going to do with the Saturn Neptune is that I want to become a bodybuilder. And this is kind of like a good example for you as well from that point of view, because the sixth house is the house of lifestyle choices. So it looks like that you're going to have to be reshaping your every day. And maybe sometimes you're going to have to practice spirituality, and sometimes you're going to have to deal with real things as well, such as I'm going to go to work, but I'm going to be creating time in my schedule. I'm going to do meditation, for example. And this way, this could be working out extremely well for you. Of course, yeah, that's okay. So what happens for Sagittarius rising sign? So this is happening in your fifth house. I mean, you know what? This is the possibility to get yourself on a stage. This is an invitation for you to really kind of publish your dreams to others, because the fifth house is the stage. So what you imagined and what you are giving shape to now can be put on a stage. This could also indicate a period of time where, yes, you're going to start a new romance, for example, or maybe this is also a period of time for you where maybe You have got certain type of creative desires that you would like to be, in a way, put on a display. Maybe you want to be opening a new company, for example. Maybe this is also a period of time for you when, because the fifth house is also taking risks and to a certain level opportunities as well. So it really looks like it's a time for you to look at your confidence, look at your opportunity to grow. And fifth house is also a money house as well, but usually that comes with a certain type of luck. So working extremely hard to manifest your dreams, to give birth to a creative project that might be financially rewarding for you at one point. Capricorn rising sign, this is happening in your fourth house. And it really looks like that this is telling you to wake up. This is telling you not to dig yourself down in a grave anymore. This is telling you to have an ambition. This is telling you to push yourself really hard so that you can kind of get out of the mud that you might have been in for a while now. Maybe you have to be reevaluating your inspirations, your aspirations. Yes, some of you moving, some of you will buy properties, some of you will be selling properties, and so forth. And those are all great stuff. But the most important message for me is that you have to be reevaluating your values and your aspirations, goals, and so forth. The reason being is because don't just look at the IC, the fourth house as the IC and the roots, but it's connected to your MC as well. So what I'm trying to say is that some things that might not have been happening for you with Pluto in the sign of Capricorn, you haven't been able to gain the power that you needed. And maybe because you didn't have the financial assets, maybe because you didn't have the support, maybe because you didn't have the strength emotionally. So this Saturn Neptune is trying to kind of reshape that for you. Aquarius rising sign. So this is happening in your third house, which is a lot of new ideas, probably maybe political ideas, maybe scientific ideas, maybe spiritual ideas. And that needs to get going. That is all about building a YouTube channel. I spoke about Saturn and Neptune cycles, how important they are from a YouTube and CNN and all these type of things. So it's about starting to build your own community. And yet, sometimes we need a disciplined member of that community. Like, is it the right one? Are they posting naked pictures or whatever we don't want, right? But also, it's about, to a level, like channeling your thoughts, your visions, so that you can kind of write about it, you can share that with others. It's somehow expressing your opinions. It could even indicate that you have got all these visions and creative abilities and writing, speaking, somehow promoting, like kind of like you want to have an Amazon account and then you want to sell something on it and all those type of stuff. It's just going to be very important that you have got a clear purpose here. Also, there is a humanitarian factor involved in the picture with Pluto in Aquarius, with Uranus in Gemini, and of course you have got this conjunction in your third sign as well. So how do I want to be in service to humanity? You might want to be asking yourself that question too. And last but not least, Pisces rising sign, which is going to be happening in your second house. And maybe because you have got the tendency, Pisces, to be in a la-la land. So on one hand, this is definitely trying to fire up your belly to go for something that you have been wanting, that makes you feel better, that makes you kind of aligned with your own body, with your own strength. Ask yourself the question, what do I need to have more sustainability, to have more security in my life? And yes, again, know that some of these are just dreams and impossible, but some of them can be made real. It is an urge with Aries that to craft something, to step into your own talents, to have a structure around your vision so that it can give you financial rewards as well at the end of the day. It really kind of feels to me that the problem could be here is that Neptune overshadows your rational mind because Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. So it kind of indicates that this conjunction is not going to go too well for you if you allow your feelings, too much fantasy, to overshadow the practical side of you. So it wants you to question whether what I'm seeing is real. It's like an investment opportunity, for example. Oh, this is great. We get too excited about it and so forth. And then we get deceived by the end of it. So before you jump into things, make sure that you ground yourself. You look at it from a realistic point of view. But it also feels like that you're going to have that I'm able to make this happen type of attitude, that I want to do something. And maybe you can make money out of spiritual practices, for example. Saturn says be resilient about it, and Neptune says connect with your heart desire. And then your finances are going to be improving quite significantly. So this is just a very brief analysis of these in the 12 signs. I just want to mention that I think I've made about 20 hours worth of video about 2025 so far. I mean, there are so many things going on, and I haven't even finished them yet because I want to be looking at the Uranus Saturn, the Chiron Aries conjunction, and I haven't even broken it down yet for the 12 signs. I've already done 3 of them, and each video is about 2 hours so far. So we are ahead of a big few years. And well, good luck to everyone, really. If you harness in the bestest possible way, it should be quite nice, depending on how the world is reacting to things around us.
Everyone to the gym, please.
Yeah, good idea.
Thank you so much, Viktor. That was so full picture, so in depth. Thank you for sharing your ideas. Thank you, everyone, for joining us again. If you'd like to connect to Astro Viktor, I'm putting a link below. He's offering 40% discount on his personal reading for our viewers. And he has 2 new courses, one on synastry or compatibility, as we call it, in relationships, and the other one starting in January on sexuality. Thank you, Viktor. That was a fantastic video. It has so much worth of information. We'll be coming back to it over and over and checking up which forecasts are being fulfilled. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great Christmas.